Thursday, here we go. Good morning. Concerts tomorrow.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The country music stops tomorrow. At least not on the daily. So I'll be off the kick, I promise. So who wants to get us started with some good news? Who's got to win? Don't make me say it. All right, Keely, what do you got?
Good morning. I had an offer accepted on my listing in Suffield, so that was exciting.
Awesome. Let's just talk through the compensation piece. How did that all play out?
Yeah, so he just sent the offer over. He said, "Are you offering compensation?" I said, "Yes, we are." And then
did he call ahead of time?
he did call it. Yeah, he was a seasoned agent. Like, he called ahead of time, and asked and asked all the right questions. And but it's funny because we were offering two, and in his compensation, from Coldwell, if I'm sounding like tired, I'm sorry. It's just because I'm on vacation and it's a little much. Anyway, so they offered 1.8 instead of two, and I thought that was kind of bizarre.
They asked for 1.8 in their offer. You mean? Yeah. Okay.
In their offer, yeah. And then but he knew. Well, I said we're offering two. Yep. And then he went with 1.8, and I didn't know if there was any rhyme or reason to that.
Yeah, interesting strategy. Strategy, right? Like, haven't really thought through that, but just trying to get a little edge. If all offers are equal, and this person's put a little, 1.8, 1.9, that's that. Hey, I want to go $1,000 over, right? With next best offer. Hey, I just offer a little less, show you that we really want this. Interesting. Great. Great share.
Yep.
Cool. Who else? Actually, Keely, multiple offer situation. You're still muted.
Sorry about that. So it was not. This was just, we had one offer that fell through, and the listing, he was pretty adamant on where he wanted to be at list, and it was high. So we lowered it a few times, and then finally we started getting some activity. And it was a cash offer, and it was the only one. So,
okay. Do you think the other agent was aware that it's cash offer? I mean, that he was the only offer. Sorry, I have been awake for a while. So
yeah, have you? I know. I don't have any excuses. This is bad. But no, he had. Did he know it? What do you mean that?
Did he know he was the only offer? Yeah.
He did not. He didn't even ask that question, to be honest.
Okay. So do we think he left a little compensation on the table here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Right.
So I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't be going 1.8. I don't know. I just don't see the. I'm not understanding.
Yeah, right. Like,
yeah.
Be honest with me. That offer came in, and it asked for 2.5 or 3. Do you think you get the job done?
Yeah, I could negotiate it. Yeah, for sure.
Right? You guys have got to understand your leverage. You've got to be sniffing out what's going on. Do I have the leverage? Right? If there's 7 offers on the table, 1.8 might be a smart play. You're the only offer. Property's been on the market. You had the leverage in that situation. Now, I don't know what kind of agreement this guy's got with his buyer. Who knows? But you've been told they're offering 2, and you just negotiated against yourself and left money on the table as an agent. Right? So ask the right questions leading up. Get a feel for what kind of leverage do I have? Who's in the driver's seat? What do you got, Nicole?
I was going to ask what you kind of just touched on. Keely, in this case, did he have an exclusive right signed that said 1.8, and that's why he couldn't go over it with his buyer?
He actually did not send that over, the exclusive right. So I do not know.
And remember, guys, that exclusive right is a contract. We don't have the rights to know. You could ask. I don't really see why it plays in. That's an agreement. Nobody's asking to see your listing agreement. Right? That's a contract that you have between you and your seller. It's a contract between that person and the buyer.
So Steve, we've never
Yeah.
shared that in Connecticut, but then how do we know, like in this case, if he did ask for 2.5, but his exclusive right to buy only said 1.8, he technically can't take 2.5. How do we confirm
That's on
that
him.
now?
That's on him.
It would just come up at closing with the attorneys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, that's on him. And don't forget, you can readjust your agreements. As long as the buyer's okay with it, you can adjust that agreement. You can go back if it was 1.8, which would be weird, but and say, hey, look, they're offering 2.5. You know, when we structured our buyer agreement at 1.8, we thought we were going to have something happen kind of quick. We've been working together for 6 months now. I've shown you 40 properties. You know, it's been a long run. You good with the 2.5 on this one? Yep, I'm okay with that. Okay, let's adjust our agreement. We're good, and we get paid 2.5 at closing. All right. All right, who else has got something? Who else has accepted an offer? We got to have some accepted offers post NAR settlement that we have not talked about. And maybe we could just walk through the details of how the negotiation went down. You know, I just want to talk through like what we just did with Keely's deal, so people can just see how these things can go back and forth. And go ahead, Doreen.
I had an accepted offer on my listing, and the buyer's agent called me ahead of time. He said, I'm going to show your property. Are you offering compensation? And I had previously discussed with the seller if he wanted to keep it the same that we had agreed upon on our listing that we had, 5 months ago set up. And he was okay. Because I had to explain that it wasn't 3% on top of what we have originally talked about, which is 6%. So, and once I explained that it's not an additional 3%, it's, the original 3% for me and 3% for the other agent, he was fine with it. And the agent was fine with it. And we just negotiated between ourselves before he even sent the offer. So it worked out.
Right. And so if I'm understanding correctly on this one, instead of saying, hey, we are offering compensation, present your offer, and then we can go from there, you actually said we're offering 3 and you gave a number.
Yes, because the seller, it was in a situation, he needs to sell his property because this was the bridge loan that I had closed with him previously. He needs to sell that property as soon as possible or quick as possible to get him out of that situation with the bridge part of it. So we just want to make sure we get that done. And he's so stressed out about it. I said, this is a decent offer. It's pretty close to what you were agreed upon taking previously. And rather than trying to, lose the offer, we just want to take the offer and get it done.
Good. Good. Great share. Thanks, Doreen. Who else has got one? Jeff and Linda.
Hi, so we met yesterday. We're taking a new listing that's going to be going live in late September. And we had our, our listing meeting several weeks ago before the NAR settlement. And they had decided that they'd like to offer 2.5% to the buyer's broker. So we went back to them with the modification form, and we discussed with them their options on how they can either completely change what they want to be offering for compensation, how they can either set on a percentage that we would then disclose when buyer agents call us and ask if there's compensation, or we gave them the option, of course, of saying, no, we're not going to be offering any compensation, and then they can negotiate with each offer that comes in, and we would let the buyer's agents know that yes, they're offering compensation, and it would be negotiated when with their offer. So we wanted to explain very fully that they have these options, right, and that they get to choose. And we had a really dialed in seller who at first really liked the idea of negotiating them out, on a case by case basis. And then he said very wisely, you know what? This market has shifted. we really need to sell this home because we're already in our new one. We don't want to carry this for very long. And so for that reason, we want to go in as strong as we possibly can with a spirit of cooperation. We wanted them, we want you guys to disclose a 2.5% number to every, shout it out to everybody. So we just loved that we were able to give our sellers these options, explain the benefits, the pros and cons of each strategy, and then let them take a decision. It felt very collaborative in the process, and it gave them a sense of really taking ownership of selling their home, and taking a decision. Now it's their decision. So it was really, really, I thought, very awesome. And we loved that he weighed what was happening in the marketplace, what their goals and objectives are. And based upon that, even though he would have loved the other strategy of negotiating out, let's just go with a number because we don't want to deter anyone or scare anybody away. So it was pretty great.
Awesome. Awesome. Great shares. We've had 3 scenarios out there now. Does anybody have any questions for the group, for the people that, put these deals together? Do you have a different scenario going on one of your deals that you want to throw out on the table? I hope you guys, we've been talking about this pretty much all week, and I hope you're starting to see, like, it's pretty comfortable. It's pretty smooth. I think we're doing really, really good with this transition. And I think, you guys coming and just kind of sharing how these deals are going down, just benefits everybody. So how about, in general, any other NAR settlement questions, form related, doesn't have to be comp related, process related? Doreen?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we went over this, but I had the buyer's agent on the deal I just accepted kind of almost refused to send me the agreement, seller to buyer compensation form. He says it's in the contract. And I had asked him if he could please just send me the form just to have it as a backup, being so fresh out of this situation and changes since, a few days ago. So he kind of was really arrogant with me and very annoyed. He called me a baby agent because he thought I didn't know what I was talking about. So I did send it to him, and I asked him to please just fill it out and send it back to me. So I'm not sure if it's a requirement that it accompanies the contract, or if because it's in the contract, he doesn't have to fill it out. So it was a little ambiguous, but I would rather have an extra form than not enough forms.
So I'm confused, and remember, I don't remember every state's exact forms, but I didn't think the purchase and sale in Florida yet disclosed the breakdown of how the commissions were being paid out. I thought Massachusetts was the only state so far that I had seen that.
On the contract, he had written out seller to pay buyer's agent compensation 3%.
Oh, he wrote it into the additional.
Additional
Okay.
terms.
Then I would agree with him, Doreen. As long as we I would agree with him. If we've got it documented in the purchase and sale that it says, specifically, right, seller to pay buyer broker X%, then I'm good with that. Yep.
Okay, because I had just got on the contract as on the buy side, and the seller agent asked me for the form as well. So, and I obliged, I gave it to her. I had my buyer fill it out. I mean, I signed it and sent it to them. So I did send it. So I just didn't know if it was right, which was which.
Right. So if you're saying on your other deal, you wrote it into the contract and you did the addendum.
Yes.
Yeah. Jeff and Linda. You're muted. Yep,
Yes, just so everybody knows, you can call the NAR legal hotline, and you can ask any questions you have regarding forms, like a question like this, Doreen. To Steve's point, it seems like if it's written in the contract, you should be fine. But I just don't think we should make any assumptions when you can go straight to these attorneys and they can tell you exactly. You can share the scenarios with them, and they will give you the exact directives on what to do. And I think at least while we're all trying to navigate our way through these new forms, that is always going to be something that's available to us and is best practice.
Yeah, and just for clarification, unless there's a new hotline that I'm not aware of, were you talking about the Florida legal hotline?
Yes, we have
Yeah.
the Florida Legal Hotline, and
Yes.
Jeff and I have called them several times, and they've been extremely helpful in answering extremely specific questions, and that's available here to all of us down here in Florida. So make use of that phone number. If you want, I can find it and I can send it out to everybody. It just gives you great peace of mind because they're telling you exactly what you need to do in every scenario.
Yeah, each state, at least that Rovi operates in, does allow agents to call the legal hotline, the state realtor legal hotline, and ask questions directly. I know some states, like Massachusetts, as of a year ago, you had to have a designated representative for the brokerage. So an agent would have to come to me or KB, ask the question. We would then turn around and ask to legal. But about a year ago or 6 months ago, Massachusetts opened it up where all agents could do this. But I think most states have the ability for agents to call directly if you're a realtor.
And, well, with all of the training that we've had over at RAISM, our local board, they have encouraged us very strongly to make use of this hotline to avoid as many issues, problems as possible. So they're encouraging us to make use of it with all of these changes. So everyone should feel very comfortable to call that hotline for your specific questions about forms and procedures.
I will say, I think we've noticed delays when you call versus seems to be a little bit quicker when you use email. So all of these also have email addresses where you can email legal. So just you can check that out on the state websites to get their email address as well. All right, anybody? How about just general questions going on deals? Regular roundtable. Who's got something? Just something that came up in the chat that I'll kind of throw out there is timelines on the reappraise, right? So for a lot of these government appraisals, so FHA, VA, if you've got an issue that comes up on the initial appraisal, sometimes they're going to ask for what's called a reinspection, right? And so the classic one is there's no handrail and there's 3 or more steps, or the span is more than 18 inches off the ground. And so these things can delay the closings for sure. Sometimes you've got an appraiser that it could take a week or two to get back out there. If you catch yourself in one of these situations, occasionally you can get an appraiser that will allow for a photo. As long as the photo is very clear that it is the house that they were just at, there's something that would like designate that they would clearly understand, yep, that's the same house. Here's the before picture. Here's the after picture. And it might save you that reinspection timeline and also the reinspection fee, because there's a fee that comes along that your buyer is going to have to pay for that reinspection. So trying to avoid that at all costs, both for the timeline and for the fee, is pretty important. So I see your hand, Lohith. Just see if does anybody have a, hey, this just happened to me on a reinspect, and just want to share anything regarding a reinspect that just might add some more color to what I'm talking about. Jen.
Morning. Sorry, I'm driving, so I don't know if I'm going to lose you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So we're closing on my listing on Friday, and it was a VA that my seller decided to accept, and there was a lot of things we had to do, but he was open to, fixing things. One of them was the well. We ended up taking care of that, putting the UV filter, but long story short, the buyer's agent was like, oh, I don't think that basement, it's like a tricky basement to get in. He's like, just cover the whole floor up to the basement and put subfloor, and just, he's like telling me to tell my seller. And I'm like, no, worst case scenario, if we have to put railings, we'll put railings. So then upstairs, when you come out of the bedroom, it's the stairs. So I said, my seller will put something there if the appraiser says to do it. He didn't want to do it beforehand, just in case, because sometimes you get the appraiser who's like, yeah, it's fine. So we ended up not doing anything, and the agent was freaking out. And I'm like, well, worst case scenario, we'll do it again. My seller was even willing to pay for the fee again, if so be it. So we ended up not doing any of the railings or anything. And the appraiser never said anything was wrong. He said everything looked great. It appraised out. So, if your seller's willing to fix those things, then, don't do it ahead of time, because you don't know what kind of appraiser, but you have to have a seller that's going to be, wanting to work with it. And he knew what he was getting into when he accepted a VA,
Yeah, great share, right? Because you might get pressure from the buyer's agent saying, hey, my buyer doesn't want to have to incur this fee, right? We know this handrail thing is going to come up. Can you please just fix the handrails prior to the appraiser going out there? From a seller's perspective, you kind of want to roll the dice and say, well, we'll fix it if, and then maybe you negotiate like Jen's saying, hey, I'll tell you what, we're not going to fix it. We think it's going to be fine. If it does come up, not only will we fix it, but we'll also pay that reinspection fee. And let your seller make that choice, right? Or, hey, we'll fix it, but that reinspection fee is going to be on you. So, and then we've also seen scenarios where if you don't have the leverage, multiple offer situation, you got to come in and say, well, as the buyer's agent, not only will we pay that reinspection fee, we'll pay for the repairs, right? So it all depends on what your leverage is. If you're not in the driver's seat, you can't be asking the seller to do the stuff ahead of time, pay the reinspection fee. But if you are, now that the tables have turned, and maybe you can start to ask for some of this stuff. Any other questions regarding the reinspection, the fees, these scenarios? Okay, good. Lohith, what do you got?
I have a weird situation. Basically, I'm selling a property, but there's some sort of a tax lien on it, where the tax lien needs to be taken care of and registered prior to closing. And my seller doesn't have the money to take care of the tax lien because it's like $25,000. And I'm trying to structure a cash deal in order to get that done. Is there more increased liability on the buyer's part if they're paying, off a tax lien prior to close? I'm assuming there is, right?
Well, I just want to be clear here. You're saying there's not enough equity in the property, so that when you at the closing, there's not going to be an extra $25,000 that can be used to pay the lien?
I talked to the town. They said it has to be done prior to closing. Both things can't be done on the same day. Because apparently it's like they're in the process of like tax foreclosure, and they apparently need to have that paid off, and then it needs to get registered, which is going to take 24 hours, and then we can close the day after. And I'm trying to structure a deal.
Have you talked to the attorneys on this, Lohith, to see if they can talk to the town? That I haven't heard of that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the attorneys need to talk to the town. You might have somebody at the town that doesn't understand, like the deed will not be recorded until that tax lien is paid, but maybe they just need to hear something from an attorney of how they're going to process it. Has anybody dealt with this? I have never heard of it not being able to just get all done at the closing if there's equity in the property. Is it possible, Lohith, that the tax lien foreclosure date is prior to the closing date? Is that maybe what the issue is?
I don't think so. I don't think it's the foreclosure process has started yet. I think it's almost like a pre-foreclosure process by the town. I mean, she hasn't paid her taxes in, a while. If you're accruing $25,000 in taxes.
Right. Yeah. Well, all depending on the property, right? You could have properties that the taxes are $25,000 a year and you just haven't paid this year's taxes. So all depends there. So keep that in mind. But yeah, that would have been a scenario where, hey, we're going to take this on August 23rd. Your closing's on August 31st. Like, right. That I could see, hey, we got to get this thing paid off ahead of time or get some sort of an, take legal action to extend that foreclosure. That would have been a scenario where I would see this coming up. So again, can anybody add any insight here? Has anybody had a scenario where there was a tax lien that need to get paid off and they just did it at the closing to just confirm my statement? Okay.
Yes, I had a lien on taxes, and there was a pre-foreclosure situation, and it was taken care at the closing.
Okay. Yeah, that's my understanding, Lohit. So let's just get the attorneys involved, get them talking to the town, and see why this couldn't all get done on closing day.
Okay.
Yep. Great question.
The only thing I can think of is if there is actually already an action by the bank that they are foreclosing. If there's like any action that they've taken, they might not have a foreclosure deed on the property, but maybe they have taken any action. Then you have to deal with the bank itself, the asset manager on that property, and say that we are in process. We have this thing that will probably work with you because they want to, have paid it off instead of taking it as a bank-owned property.
There's no bank, and that's what I was really confused about. And the lady at the town told me this, and I was shocked because I'm like, why don't we just do it at closing? And then I guess the secondary question is, if we do have to get it registered prior, and if the buyers do have to pay for it, how are those funds going to get handled? Right.
Yeah, I guess the other thing that you might be able to do here, Lohit, so you're saying that this is a seller. No, there's no mortgage for your seller. They own this property free and clear?
Yeah, there's no mortgage
Okay.
for the seller. They own the property free and clear. There was 2 people on the deed, and one of them passed away, which was her mother. And she's trying to sell the property. And this is kind of the situation that arises.
Okay. So one thing that I'm thinking of, first of all, make sure that this property doesn't need to go through the probate process or where it is in the probate. When you have a death, you want to make sure that all of that is situated. If that sneaks up on you, that's going to delay the closing as well. So have you talked to the attorney to make sure there's, there's a will in place and this thing's been deeded properly?
I have not. I got to do that.
Yeah, let's
I've
get
never
started on
dealt
that.
with like a probate issue on the seller side, so I just need to get the attorneys involved, I think.
Yeah, the minute that you guys hear, somebody passed away that used to have ownership rights to this property, you got to get the attorneys involved on the probate process, even if it was years ago. We've got to make sure that we've got a clean title here and we don't have any issues. Okay, so that's the first thing. The only other thing that I was thinking of, Lohit, and I don't know how this would work, but I'm curious if we could pull it off this way, is if that seller goes and gets a home equity line on the property, right? You should be able to get a home equity line for like $25,000, no problem. Use that to pay the taxes. And that, if you've got a property you own free and clear, you should be able to get $25,000 of home equity without an issue. Margareta?
I don't think they're going to get equity because that lien is already there and the bank won't give it to them. So I think that might be an issue. I don't know.
I mean, it's not like, what's the house worth, Lohit?
It's like the current offer we have is like $250 with the taxes being paid by the buyers. But before we go under agreement, I just want to get all my ducks in a row.
Yeah. And Megan, I'm seeing your comment and I am aware of that, but I've seen banks do it to just help a consumer. So Megan's comment is just that you can't get a home equity line if the property is listed for sale. I had a situation where a local bank was just like, hey, you've been a client, we'll do this, we'll give you the money, right? And so maybe they didn't technically call it a home equity line or something. But there was a workaround for that situation. It was just like a local bank that they're like, hey, we know we're going to get our money. And so we're going to do it this way. So maybe they called it something else, but that's a great point. If you just go your traditional route, home equity line, you might have trouble getting that. So great point. But so if you have to go that route, just see if you can get a local bank to just help out. Hey, look, here's the deal. You know, we're listed. We need this money. You're going to get your money back, right? It closes in 3 weeks. So we're just looking for like a short-term loan, and the bank will have the house as collateral. Margareta.
Oh, I have a current buyer, and he's been trying to get pre-approved, and I had him because he was approved about basic, just by the lender. But I'm like, no, we need to, because I knew there were some issues. So I had them underwritten, and of course it was a flag. He was in like a pre-foreclosure situation. And I'm like, and he already has the property. So I'm like, well, can we do equity line of credit, or like, can we do it against it? So the underwriter came back and said, well, since there were like if there's any liens, any like pre-foreclosure situations, they say they have to wait 2 years before that clears, unless you have a really good explanation what happened. So it's either an explanation letter or, but again, like Steve said, local banks might work with you. It depends on the credit of the individual too, from what I'm understanding.
Yeah. The more I'm thinking back to this scenario, I feel like I think you can just go to your local bank and get like a personal loan if your credit's good enough. Right? So maybe that's what it was. I feel like I had this scenario where the local bank stepped in, gave him the money. I forget what they needed it for, but there was something like that. And so anybody have a scenario like this? So it wasn't technically a home equity line. It was just like a personal loan that they were able to get that you could use for whatever. I don't know. I don't think I'm making it up. Hopefully somebody, maybe you can look into it, and, interested to see what you come back and find out with this whole thing. So, all right, guys, we're a little over here. Go have yourselves an awesome Thursday, and can't wait to talk to you again tomorrow morning. Take care.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.